If your prayer life is feeling a bit dull and jaded, and it could do with something of a makeover, and let's face it, who's couldn't? Here's a whole load of ideas for you to choose from. Where to pray? Well, if we're supposed to be praying at all times, then anywhere and everywhere will do.
150 feet up in the air in New Zealand doing a bungee jump. That is a real encouragement to prayer. Lord, please let me live.
I tend to pray when I'm walking the street.
Praying sometimes team coming in the morning.
I quite often pray on in an aeroplane if we're about to take off. It's not I'm nervous or scared of flying, it's just it's a bit more reassuring.
I find it's great praying in the car, especially driving home at 2 in the morning from rehearsal. It's brilliant then, because there's nobody else to distract you unless you get the radio on. You know, and that time of the morning it's pretty sad people that do the phone-ins.
So just got onto the top of this tree and sat there where no one could see me and prayed up the tree. And it's really lovely, it's really cool.
Anywhere and everywhere will do. But for your personal quiet time, the time you set apart to be alone with God, the Bible has some clear pointers.
When you pray, you should go into your room and close the door and pray to your Father, who cannot be seen.
Basically, what you're looking for is somewhere you can really be focused and alert with God and not too distracted by other people. Now, what about posture? The average sitcom thinks somebody praying looks like this. And a visit to your church prayer meeting might well convince you that prayer is more like this. And a quick scan through the Bible gives you a whole load of different pictures of people praying. As a general rule, for your personal quiet time, you want to be reasonably comfortable. Not uncomfortable, not over-comfortable, just common sense comfortable.
I walk, I stand, I sit, sometimes I'll kneel.
I very rarely close my eyes even to pray. Now, partly because I get very tired, and I tend to be one of these people, if you close your eyes, you go to sleep. So I tend to keep my eyes open even when I pray, and focus on what I'm saying.
If it's a case where I'm feeling sorry before the Lord, and I'm repenting or saying sorry for something that I've done or said or thought wrong, or somewhere where I need to change me, or I need the Lord to change me, then what I may well do then is kneel. At different times when I'm praying for someone or a particular situation, I'm a bit more aggressive and I want to move around.
I try to be as natural as possible, as natural as I would be with you when I'm talking to you now. I want to be that way with God. I don't want to put on an act when I talk to God. I want to be natural with him.
Now, bad language is not on. Words and phrases such as whithersoever thou wouldest, omnipotent, omniscient, not to mention thee, thy and thine, don't impress anybody. It's not big, it's not clever, and most of all, it's not you. And it's always the real you that God wants to hear from.
I find it easier to pray out loud rather than quiet.
I don't pray very loudly at all.
But if I'm speaking out loud and praying out loud, then actually I can stick more to what I'm praying about, and I find it a lot easier to concentrate.
I find it much easier to be silent and to talk to God, because that really, for me, has greater meaning in a very busy and hectic schedule.
Rather than just burbling on until you stop, it's a good idea to have some sort of structure to what you pray.
Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one.
Yeah, I try to use that model as well. Because I find that if I try to pray by myself, I'll end up just talking about myself all the time. And when you use the Lord's Prayer, you have to start with Our Father who is art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Yeah.
Quite often I will use more of a liturgical form, or what they call an office, which is some set readings which I read and go through, and set prayers, and then I'll go on and use perhaps a biblical prayer framework as well to use to help and guide me in my prayer time.
One well-known structure uses the letters of the word ACTS. That's A-C-T-S for the heart of thinking. Now, A stands for adoration. That's when you worship God. C is for confession. You then follow it with a T, which is for thanksgiving. And then finally, you move on to S, which is for supplication. That's when you ask God for things. Now, you may know of other structures or, in fact, have worked out your own. That's great. Now, one obvious framework when you're praying for people is to have a list. People you pray for every day, people you pray for every week, and those you pray for every month.
Also, having a prayer diary is a very good thing. You just think, oh, God's not answering my prayers, but if you actually sit and think about it, you can write down loads.
Sometimes you just kind of forget that you've prayed something, and then, you know, you might remember sort of weeks or months later, you think, oh yeah, I remember praying about that. But if you actually got it written down, then it's really handy just to look back, and it's really encouraging, so that you can just keep a note of what God is actually doing.
Some people find it good to make use of existing prayers. You can get books of them in all sorts of styles. And there are lots of prayers in the Bible.
Some of the Psalms, you know, we've got 150 prayers in one book of the Bible.
Sometimes you don't have the right words to say if you're angry with God. You don't know how to express that anger, and just by reading through these Psalms, it kind of takes you through a process, and you can just read them to God almost, and they nearly always end up with the anger being reversed and the person actually recognising, you know, how wonderful God is.
But one really good thing that I keep doing is, particularly with the Psalms, I would read one verse and then formulate my own prayer based around that verse, and then go on to the next verse and do the same again, and all the way through the Psalms. So I'm praying the Psalms one verse at a time.
Moving away from the quiet time slot, to help you to pray at all times, it's good to set up associations. So, for instance, when you make a cup of coffee, or when you switch on the computer, or whatever you do that's a regular activity, you remember to pray for a member of your family, or your best friend, or the leader of your church. So it's like coffee, pray, computer, pray. It becomes instinctive.
I have a friend who drives a red van, and so whenever I see a red van like it, I just pray for him then and there.
You know, quite often I will video the news and pray afterwards with the sound off for those situations, for those people that I've seen on the news that night. I use photographs out of newspapers as well. You know, they're fantastic, because you've got there people that you've never met, never heard of before, but you've got their names and you've got their faces, and you can just hold it and pray for those people.
Also, if you've been on a camp in the summer, perhaps, you know, like a cipher or scripture union camp, and you usually get those big photos at the end. I had one for about a year, from the summer to the summer, and it's just above my mirror, so in the morning when I used to get up, I was like, oh, I didn't want to look at my own face, so I look at the faces as well as people smiling at it, and just try and pray for like a row a day or something in the photos.
I've got a sheet of glass on my desk, and under there's a load of photos, and I made sure I had lots of different ones so I could pray for lots of different people. It helps me in that way, and sometimes I write lists if there's particular things, and I put them on the wall just to remind me, like, to pray, and if I keep doing it during the day, that helps.
I quite often actually have little post-it notes, and on there I'll just write one word of the situation or a name of a person or whatever that I'm praying for at that particular time, and that may be in the front of my checkbook, because I seem to be using it quite regularly, or I'll put it on the dashboard of the car, and as I'm driving I'll be praying as well.
You can use most of these ideas when praying with other people, but particularly for praying in groups, there's prayer walking. That's when you walk around an area and either silently or out loud, if it's appropriate, pray about the people and situations that you come across. Then there are prayer triplets which you can organise. That's when you get together with two people and you pray for each other. And you pray for each other's friends and families. Or you can have a prayer concert. That's when you get a load of people together from all different churches maybe. And you pray together and worship together. There are hundreds of different ways to pray. Try a few. The most important thing is that God is longing to hear from you. So get praying.
Get 'em up in the air, raise 'em up in prayer, speak up your house, dig 'em up, get 'em up in the air, raise 'em up, pumping player. Getting